Nathan Carter had always considered himself an ordinary guy, just a simple human engineer working on a neutral space station. His life was predictable, filled with repairing ships, fixing mechanical failures, and dealing with stubborn alien clients who barely acknowledged his presence. That was until today. Today, everything changed. Nathan stood stiffly inside the grand Zenari Imperial Court, feeling completely out of place. The towering alien nobles in their golden robes whispered among themselves, their reptilian eyes full of confusion. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't a diplomat, a warrior, or anyone important. He was just a repair technician. And yet, he had been summoned. At the far end of the massive throne room sat Princess Zyra, the newly crowned ruler of the Zenari Empire. She was striking. Her deep violet skin shimmered under the golden lights, and her piercing silver eyes locked onto Nathan the moment he entered. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Nathan swallowed hard. What the hell is going on? The Emperor, Zyra's father, sat beside her on a throne carved from obsidian. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze flicked between Nathan and his daughter with something that almost resembled curiosity. Finally, Zyra stood. She was tall, nearly a foot taller than Nathan, and she moved with an air of authority. Every noble in the room held their breath. Then, to Nathan's absolute horror, she pointed directly at him and said, You belong to me." A wave of gasps rippled through the court. Murmurs of shock filled the air, and some nobles even looked offended. Nathan blinked. Surely he misheard. Did she just? What? A heavy hand landed on his shoulder, and he turned to see a Zenari guard staring down at him with an unreadable expression. "You will speak," the guard said in a deep voice. Nathan hesitated, his mind racing. He was just a mechanic. He had no idea how to talk to alien royalty. But one thing was clear. This was not a request. I think there's been a mistake," Nathan finally said, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. "I'm just an engineer. I don't know why I'm here." Zyra tilted her head, studying him. "There is no mistake," she said calmly. "I have chosen you." The murmurs grew louder. Even the Emperor arched an eyebrow, as if he hadn't expected this. Nathan felt his stomach drop. Chosen? Chosen for what? This wasn't some kind of alien marriage proposal, was it? Look, I think you have the wrong guy." Nathan tried again, forcing an awkward smile. "I don't even know you." Zyra stepped forward, her silver eyes locked onto his. "That is what makes this interesting," she said softly. Nathan's blood ran cold. He wasn't sure what game the princess was playing, but one thing was certain: she wasn't letting him go. And he had no idea how to escape. Nathan Carter could feel the weight of 100 alien eyes staring at him. The grand throne room of the Zenari Empire was silent, except for the low murmurs of the nobles. His heart pounded in his chest. This has to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. But Princess Zyra stood before him, tall and graceful, her glowing silver eyes watching him with an unreadable expression. The words she had spoken still echoed in his mind. "You belong to me." Nathan swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry. I don't think that's how this works," he said, forcing an awkward laugh. "I mean, I'm just a mechanic. You probably meant someone else." "Right." A few nobles whispered among themselves, clearly amused by his confusion. Zyra, however, did not laugh. Instead, she took another step forward, her golden robes flowing behind her like liquid metal. "I do not make mistakes," she said firmly. "You are human. That makes you different." Nathan frowned. Different. The Emperor, who had been silent until now, finally leaned forward on his throne. His deep voice filled the room. "My daughter has never chosen a suitor before," he said, his eyes sharp. "Why now, Zyra? And why him?" Zyra didn't even hesitate. "Because humans are unique," she said. "They do things not even the greatest Zenari warriors do. They fight for reasons beyond strength. They protect even when they have no reason to. And above all, her silver gaze locked onto Nathan's. They do not break easily. Nathan felt his stomach twist. What the hell does that mean? A powerful noble, standing near the emperor, scoffed. A human? A weak, fragile creature. Hardly worthy of your attention, princess. Nathan exhaled sharply. He was getting really tired of aliens looking down on him. Hey, I'm standing right here, you know, he muttered. Zyra's lips curved slightly. And yet, he dares to speak in a room full of warriors who could crush him. She looked at her father. That is why I choose him. Nathan's blood ran cold. This wasn't just some misunderstanding. She was serious. Wait, he said quickly, waving his hands. I don't know what kind of tradition this is, but I can't just. You cannot refuse. Zyra's words silenced the entire room. Nathan blinked. Excuse me. A Zenari guard stepped forward. It is forbidden to reject a royal selection, he explained. To do so would bring dishonor and punishment. Nathan stared at them in disbelief. They were telling him he had no choice. Panic started rising in his chest. He needed to get out of here. He needed a plan. But as he glanced at Zyra, he realized something. She wasn't going to let him go. And for the first time, he truly understood. He was in serious trouble. Nathan Carter paced inside the luxurious chamber, his mind racing. The moment the guards had escorted him here, he knew one thing for certain. He was a prisoner, not a guest. The room was massive, filled with golden furniture, silk drapes, and strange glowing stones embedded in the walls. It was easily the most expensive place he had ever been in. But that didn't matter. He needed to get out. Nathan had spent his entire life fixing things, ships, engines, broken communication relays. He wasn't a warrior, he wasn't a spy, and he sure as hell wasn't a royal consort. His eyes darted to the tall windows. Outside, he could see the capital city of the Zenari Empire, a maze of towering buildings and glowing sky bridges. The place looked beautiful and impossible to escape. Think, Nathan. Think. His best chance was the ventilation system. The Zenari were big, much taller and bulkier than humans. If their vents were designed for them, maybe he could crawl through them unnoticed. Nathan grabbed a chair, dragged it under a metallic panel in the ceiling, and climbed up. His fingers worked quickly, unscrewing the bolts using a small tool he always kept in his pocket. Almost there, just a little more. The door slid open behind him. Nathan froze. A familiar voice filled the room. Interesting. He turned his head slowly. Standing at the entrance was Princess Zyra, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nathan, still hanging from the vent, and Zyra, watching him like a scientist observing a strange new creature. Then she chuckled. Are you attempting to escape? Nathan let out a nervous laugh. No, just checking the air quality. Zyra tilted her head. Humans truly are fascinating. She stepped forward, her silver eyes glowing. You realize that no one has ever dared to defy my choice before. Nathan climbed down slowly, knowing he was caught. Yeah, well, I'm not exactly used to being chosen. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. Look, Zyra, I'm not royal material. I don't belong here. Zyra's expression remained unreadable. And yet, here you are. Nathan clenched his jaw. Only because I have no choice. She studied him for a moment before replying. Perhaps you misunderstand. Nathan frowned. Misunderstand what? Zyra took a step closer, standing just inches from him. You think I'd want to own you? Nathan raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you literally said, you belong to me. A small smile played on her lips. I said that because I have chosen you, but you are not a prisoner. Nathan crossed his arms. Really? Because it sure feels like one. Zyra's gaze softened just slightly. I will not force you. But you intrigue me, Nathan Carter, and I do not let go of things that intrigue me so easily. Nathan felt his stomach twist. She wasn't going to stop, and escape was not going to be easy. Nathan sat on the edge of the soft, luxurious bed in his room, staring out the window at the vast city below. The lights from the Zanari capital twinkled like stars, but he felt more trapped than ever before. He had tried to escape once, and Sarah had caught him without breaking a sweat. Now he was stuck in this alien palace, surrounded by people who thought he was some kind of prize. How did I end up in this mess? It wasn't long before Xyra appeared again. She didn't knock. She never did. Her silvery eyes gleamed as she walked into the room, looking as regal as ever. Her presence filled the space, making Nathan feel small in comparison. "You look uncomfortable," Xyra said, her voice calm, almost too calm. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck, trying to act casual. "Yeah, well, it's not exactly the kind of place I'm used to." Sarah tilted her head, studying him closely. "You think I'm forcing you into something, don't you?" Nathan stared at her, unsure of how to answer. "Aren't you? I mean, I don't exactly have a choice here." She smiled faintly, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reassured him. "You still don't understand, do you?" Nathan frowned. "Understand what?" Xyra sat across from him, her posture straight but relaxed. "I don't want to own you, Nathan. I want to understand you." Nathan blinked, completely thrown off. "What do you mean?" Xyra's eyes softened slightly, her gaze growing distant, as if she were thinking about something long ago. "When I first saw humans in battle, I thought you were nothing more than fragile, weak creatures. You seemed like nothing compared to the Zanari, your bodies, your technology, your very way of life. I never understood how you could fight and survive in such dangerous conditions." Nathan stayed quiet, letting her speak. There was something different about her now, something less regal and more human. "You see," she continued, "I saw a human soldier sacrifice himself to save an alien child. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think about his own life. He just acted. That moment changed me. I started to study humans, to learn more, and I became obsessed with you. Your kind's ability to love, to fight for others, even when you have nothing to gain. It's something we Zanari cannot understand. We fight to win, to gain power, to secure our future. But you humans, you fight for reasons far beyond that." Nathan was speechless. He never expected an answer like that. He had always seen humans as ordinary, just another species trying to survive. But Xyra's words made him realize something. She didn't just see him as a curiosity or a tool. She genuinely wanted to understand humanity. All of it, even the messy, complicated parts. "So, you chose me to learn about us?" Nathan asked, his voice softer now. Xyra nodded. "Yes, but it is more than that. You are a test for me, Nathan, a test to see if I can truly understand the essence of humanity. I don't want to own you, but I need you." Nathan was quiet for a long time. He wasn't sure how to respond to this. All this time, he had thought Xyra was just another powerful alien trying to control them. But now, it seemed like she was searching for something deeper, something that couldn't be explained by power or strength. "Well," Nathan said finally, "I guess I can't exactly run away now, can I?" Xyra's lips twitched into a faint smile. "No, you cannot. But I hope that, over time, you'll understand why I chose you." Nathan didn't reply. But deep down, he felt something shift. This was more than just a trap. Xyra's fascination with humanity was genuine. And somehow, that made the whole situation a little less suffocating. Nathan Carter's life had become a strange routine. Each day was filled with lessons from Princess Xyra, where she asked him about human history, emotions, and values. She was fascinated by everything. How humans formed bonds, the way they fought, how they expressed love and sacrifice. It was strange at first, but slowly, Nathan started to feel like she wasn't just studying him. She was actually starting to understand him, but not everyone saw it that way. The Zenari court, with its rigid and ancient traditions, wasn't as open to the idea of a human being so close to their princess. Whispers followed Nathan wherever he went, like a shadow he couldn't shake. The nobles of the court, with their reptilian eyes and sharp minds, were suspicious, and when suspicion grew, so did the danger. Nathan could feel the eyes on him. The Zenari guards, always watching. The courtiers, always whispering. It was like he was walking on a tightrope. One wrong step, and he could fall into an abyss he couldn't escape from. One afternoon, as Nathan sat in the gardens, he overheard a conversation between two high-ranking Zenari generals. "He's a human," one of them said with a growl. "How long will we let this farce continue?" The other replied, "The princess has chosen him, but it weakens us. Humans are nothing but animals." Nathan clenched his fists, anger rising in his chest. Animals, huh? He thought. He wasn't some pet to be looked down on. Syra, who had been walking nearby, approached them just as they spoke. She caught the end of the conversation and turned to face the generals, her eyes glowing with icy fury. "Do you call him an animal?" she asked coldly, her voice commanding attention. "Do not forget that it is I who have chosen him. It is I who demand respect for him." The generals exchanged uneasy glances, but they didn't dare argue. Still, their disapproval was obvious in the stiff postures they adopted whenever Nathan was near. It was becoming clear that not everyone in the Zenari Empire was pleased with the princess's choice. Nathan watched Syra, who stood tall and proud, defending him. She looked powerful, even when she was surrounded by enemies. But the weight of the empire's expectations seemed to press down on her. The nobles and generals weren't the only ones who were suspicious. Her father, the emperor, had started to take an interest in Nathan as well. Late that evening, the emperor summoned Nathan to the throne room. Nathan had no idea what to expect, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was going to be different. The emperor was sitting on his obsidian throne, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Human," he began, his voice low, "I have been watching you. You seem different from other humans." Nathan stood a little straighter, his heart racing. "I don't know what you mean, Your Majesty." The emperor leaned forward, his gaze intense. "You think you understand the Zenari. You think you can win my daughter's heart, but you do not know what you are dealing with." Nathan met his gaze, trying not to show how unsettled he felt. "I'm not trying to win anything. I'm just here, trying to survive." The emperor's lips curled into a slight smile. "You may be trying to survive, but you have something that others don't. You have caught my daughter's interest, and that is something I do not take lightly." Nathan's mind spun. Caught her interest. He had thought he was just a curiosity to Syra, but the emperor was making it sound like he was something much more. "And if you do not prove yourself," the emperor continued, his voice dark, "you will not survive here." Nathan's heart dropped. He hadn't realized how high the stakes were until now. This wasn't just about Syra's curiosity anymore. It was about something much bigger. The entire Zenari Empire was watching him, waiting for him to fail. Nathan had never felt more out of place in his life. Every step he took inside the Zenari palace felt like walking on the edge of a razor blade. The emperor had made it clear, if Nathan couldn't prove himself, there would be consequences. But Nathan didn't even know what kind of test he was supposed to face. He was just a human engineer. He wasn't trained for combat or royal games. Yet, Syra had kept his spirits up, assuring him that her trust in him was unshakable. She believed in his strength, even if he didn't believe in himself. But that confidence was about to be tested in ways he couldn't have imagined. One evening, while walking alone through the palace gardens, Nathan was approached by a figure cloaked in the shadows. Before he could react, a sharp pain surged through his side. A hidden blade had slashed him, just above his ribs. His vision blurred for a moment, but he quickly gathered himself. He couldn't afford to panic. With his heart racing, Nathan spun around, trying to spot his attacker. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a tall Zenari warrior, one Nathan didn't recognize. The warrior grinned, his teeth sharp and cruel. "You think you belong here, human," the Zenari growled, raising his weapon for another strike. "You don't even understand what you're dealing with." Nathan staggered back, his side burning. Who the hell was this? And why was he attacking me? Suddenly, before the Zenari could strike again, a fierce blur of motion rushed past him. Kazaira. The princess moved like a whirlwind, faster than Nathan had ever seen her. With a swift motion, she knocked the warrior aside, disarming him and sending him crashing to the ground. The warrior groaned, his pride hurt more than his body. He struggled to rise, but Sarah placed a booted foot on his chest. "You dare attack my guest?" she demanded, her voice cold as ice. Nathan's heart thudded in his chest, but he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. Zyra was here, and she had saved him. The warrior glared up at her. "The Emperor will not tolerate this. You know that, Princess. The human weakens us. He should never have been brought here." Zyra's eyes flared with anger, her silver gaze piercing through him. "You are a traitor. You dared to harm the one I chose. You are beneath me." Nathan took a shaky step forward, his side still throbbing, but he couldn't just stand by. "Wait, Zyra. Who is he? Why is he doing this?" Zyra looked at him, her expression softening slightly. "This is one of the Zenari military generals. He believes your presence here dishonors the Empire." The warrior scoffed. "You are blinded by your obsession with the human. The Zenari will never accept this, and when the Emperor hears about this, you'll regret it." Zyra stepped back, finally releasing the pressure on his chest. She turned to Nathan, her face unreadable. "I won't let anyone harm you, but this isn't just about you anymore. It's about the Empire." Nathan, still in shock, nodded slowly. He had no idea what was going on, but this was no longer just about his survival. It was about Zyra's future as well. "Take him away," Zyra ordered, motioning to the guards who appeared at her side. "He will answer for his betrayal." As the warrior was dragged away, Nathan stood silently, absorbing the full weight of what had just happened. He wasn't just a curiosity anymore. He was a symbol of something bigger, something dangerous, and he had no idea how much deeper the game was going to get. Nathan sat in his room, still trying to process the chaos of the last few hours. Zyra had just saved his life, and yet the situation had only grown more complicated. The warrior who had attacked him was now in the palace dungeon, but that didn't change the fact that the Zenari nobles and generals were starting to see him as a threat. The Emperor had made it clear, if Nathan wanted to stay, he needed to prove he was more than just a curiosity. He needed to show the Zenari that a human could be worthy of Zyra's attention. But what could he possibly do to prove himself? He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't trained in combat. He had no idea how to impress an entire empire with his skills. The door to his room slid open, and Sarah stepped inside, her face serious. Her usual calm, confident demeanor had shifted. There was an edge to her now, an urgency that Nathan couldn't ignore. "Nathan," she said softly, her silver eyes glowing with determination. "The Emperor has given you an ultimatum. You must prove your strength in the arena of the Zenith. It is a sacred place where Zenari warriors fight for honor and power. If you can't hold your own there, you'll be exiled. I cannot protect you if you fail." Nathan's stomach dropped. The arena of the Zenith was infamous for being a brutal test of strength, skill, and endurance. The Zenari warriors were legendary, fast, strong, and ruthless. Nathan had no training, no experience. This was a test he couldn't possibly win. "You want me to fight in the arena?" Nathan asked, his voice shaky. "Against them? I'm not a fighter, Zyra. You know that." Zyra's eyes softened. "I know, but the Emperor is testing you. He wants to see if you can survive." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. You may not be a warrior, but you have something they don't. Human ingenuity. Use that. Think outside the rules they've set. Nathan stared at her, the weight of the situation sinking in. He could back out, but what would that mean? He had already been dragged into this world, and now his choices were limited. If he didn't prove himself, he could lose everything. Syra, the trust she had in him, and the strange bond that was beginning to form between them. I'm not a fighter, Nathan repeated, his voice quieter now. But I'll try. I won't back down. Syra nodded. That's all I ask. She turned to leave but stopped before the door. I believe in you, Nathan. I always have. Her words stayed with him long after she left. The arena was no place for someone like him. But if he had to prove his worth, if he had to show the Zenari that a human could be more than just a weak outsider, he was going to find a way. The next day, Nathan found himself standing in the heart of the arena of the Zenith. The massive stone structure was filled with spectators, Zenari nobles, soldiers, and even the Emperor himself. The atmosphere was charged with excitement, and Nathan could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just a fight for his survival. It was a fight for his future. He was led into the center of the arena, where he was confronted by his first opponent, an enormous Zenari warrior, his muscles rippling under his golden armor. The crowd roared in approval, and Nathan could barely breathe as he faced the massive opponent. This was it. This was his chance to prove he belonged here. He had no choice but to fight. Nathan stood in the center of the arena of the Zenith, his heart hammering in his chest. His opponent, a Zenari warrior twice his size, cracked his knuckles, ready for the fight. The crowd roared, their voices echoing off the stone walls of the arena. Nathan could feel their eyes on him, but he was trying to block them out. This was it. This was his moment. The warrior across from him sneered. You are nothing but an insect, human. This will be over quickly. Nathan swallowed hard, forcing himself to stand tall. I may not be a fighter, but I'm not giving up. The Zenari lunged forward with lightning speed, aiming for Nathan's chest. Nathan barely dodged in time, his heart racing as he scrambled to stay on his feet. The warrior was faster than anything Nathan had ever seen. There was no way he could match that kind of power. But Syra's words echoed in his mind. Use your ingenuity. Nathan took a deep breath. He couldn't win through strength, but maybe he didn't have to. He needed to outsmart the Zenari. He needed to make the warrior underestimate him. The Zenari warrior came at him again, swinging his blade with deadly intent. Nathan ducked low, just missing the blow. And then he spotted something. A weak spot in the warrior's guard. Without thinking, he darted forward, grabbing a loose piece of debris from the ground and throwing it at the warrior's face. The distraction worked. The Zenari stumbled back, his eyes narrowing. Nathan didn't wait. He darted to the side, using his agility to stay one step ahead. The warrior swung his blade again, but Nathan was faster, dodging just in time, and using his opponent's momentum against him. The warrior lost his balance and crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. The crowd went silent. For a moment, Nathan thought he had lost. But then he saw the warrior scramble to get up. He was furious now, no longer underestimating his opponent. Nathan knew he couldn't keep dodging forever. He had to end this, and quickly. Spotting a large stone pillar nearby, Nathan ran toward it, climbing it as fast as he could. He had no plan except to get to a higher ground and hope for the best. The warrior roared in anger and followed, his heavy footsteps pounding the ground. Just as the Zenari reached the base of the pillar, Nathan jumped, using his legs to push off the stone with all his strength. He landed on the warrior's back, knocking him to the ground once more. The crowd was silent for a split second, and then they erupted into applause. Nathan didn't have time to enjoy the moment. The warrior was starting to rise again. Nathan needed to act fast. He quickly grabbed the warrior's sword and positioned it over his opponent's chest, forcing the warrior to stop moving. The Zanari stared up at him, breathing heavily. "If you want to live, you'll stay down," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. For a long moment, the Zanari warrior just stared at him. And then, reluctantly, he nodded. Nathan slowly withdrew the sword, and the warrior stood, stepping back. The crowd roared once more, and Nathan couldn't believe what had just happened. He had won. But more importantly, he had proven himself. To Xyra, to the Emperor, and to everyone who doubted him. As the announcer declared him the victor, Nathan turned toward Xyra, who was standing at the edge of the arena, her eyes glowing with pride. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about changing everything. Nathan stood in the middle of the arena, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The cheers of the crowd still echoed in his ears, but his mind was elsewhere. He had just fought, survived, and beaten an opponent twice his size. But now, as the weight of the situation hit him, he realized this victory wasn't just a fight. It was a turning point. The Zanari warriors who had once looked at him with scorn were now silent. The nobles who had whispered behind his back were watching him with newfound respect. The Emperor, who had ordered this test, remained seated on his throne, his expression unreadable. Xyra was standing at the edge of the arena, her eyes fixed on him. A proud smile tugged at her lips. Nathan's heart skipped a beat. She had always believed in him, and now, for the first time, he felt like he had truly earned that belief. But as the applause continued, Nathan couldn't ignore the storm brewing inside him. He had done what was expected of him. He had proven that a human could hold his own against the Zanari. But what came next? What would happen after this victory? The crowd began to thin as people returned to their seats, but Nathan stayed rooted to the spot. He couldn't stop thinking about Xyra, about what her father had said, about what this victory meant for them both. Finally, Xyra approached him, her steps slow but sure. She stopped in front of him, her expression soft but intense. "You did it," she said, her voice low and full of emotion. "I knew you could." Nathan felt a lump form in his throat. "I don't know if I believe it yet." Xyra reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You've proven more than just your strength, Nathan. You've proven your heart. That's something no Zanari can ever understand." Nathan met her gaze, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. What did this mean for them? He had passed the test, but there were still many more challenges ahead. The Emperor had warned him that this was only the beginning. "You don't have to do this alone," Xyra continued, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm here, and I won't let anyone take you away from me. You belong here, with me." Nathan's heart raced. Belong here? He was just a human, an outsider in a galaxy full of powerful alien species. What did he belong to? What future did he have in this world that had only just begun to accept him? But when he looked at Xyra, standing before him, her confidence and warmth radiating, he realized something. Maybe he didn't have all the answers yet, but he had a choice. "I don't know what the future holds," Nathan said, his voice steady. "But I know I'm not going to give up. Not on you. Not on this." Xyra smiled, a smile full of relief and hope. "Then we'll face it together." For the first time since he arrived on Zanari, Nathan felt like he was no longer just surviving. He wasn't just a human in an alien empire, trying to prove himself. He was part of something bigger, something that had the potential to change everything. The crowd's cheers were still ringing in his ears, but all Nathan could focus on now was the quiet, powerful moment between him and Xyra. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Nathan stood beside Princess Xyra, feeling the weight of the moment. The Zanari Empire had watched him fight, had watched him survive. He had faced their strongest warrior, and he had won. The cheers of the crowd still echoed in his mind, but now, a new kind of silence had settled over him. It was a silence full of uncertainty and possibilities. The Emperor, who had been a distant figure for most of Nathan's time on Zanari, finally stood from his throne. His eyes locked with Nathan's, measuring him, weighing him. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. "You have proven your worth, human," the Emperor said, his voice rich with authority. "You survived the arena. You survived what few Zanari could. But this is not the end of your test. You have not earned a place here by strength alone. There are other tests to come." Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't over yet. He had passed one trial, but what came next? "I have already proven myself," Nathan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've shown I can fight. I've shown I can survive." The Emperor's gaze softened for a moment, but then his face hardened again. "Strength is only one part of being part of this empire. The real test will be the one you cannot see coming." Tyra stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "He's done more than any Zanari I've seen. He deserves to be here. He's shown the strength of heart, of mind. No one else can claim that." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then, slowly he nodded. "You may stay, Nathan Carter. You may remain in the court of Zanari. But know this, you are not here to simply exist. You are here because you are now part of something far greater than you can imagine. The Empire will look to you. They will expect much." Nathan nodded slowly, understanding the weight of the Emperor's words. This wasn't just about survival anymore. He was part of the Zanari now, whether he liked it or not. He had proven himself, yes, but that didn't mean everything was going to be easy. As the crowd erupted in cheers again, Nathan turned to look at Syra. Her silver eyes were bright with pride, but there was something else there too, a sense of hope, of a future that had just begun to unfold. "You did it," Syra said, her voice filled with emotion. "You proved to them that a human can be more than just an outsider. You've earned your place here with me." Nathan felt a warmth spread through him as he gazed into her eyes. She believed in him, and somehow, that belief had made all the difference. It wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about heart, about the unbreakable bond they had formed over time. "I didn't do it alone," Nathan said quietly, his voice full of sincerity. "I did it because you stood by me, because you trusted me when no one else would." Syra smiled, her hand finding his. "And I will always stand by you, Nathan. We will face whatever comes together." For the first time since arriving on Zanari, Nathan finally felt like he had a purpose. He wasn't just a human on an alien planet. He wasn't just trying to survive. He had a place here. And with Syra by his side, the future suddenly seemed brighter, full of endless possibilities. Together, they would face whatever the Empire threw at them. And Nathan knew that no matter how difficult it got, he would never have to face it alone.